So that really takes us on to the last session, and yeah, there are other tool vendors out there, and one that's going to share their view on leveraging ITAM to accelerate digital transformation is our sponsor today, Freshworks, and I'd like to hand over to Ross and Matt and Christos from Freshworks to take you through some of their experiences now. Thanks very much, guys.
Awesome. Yeah, nice to meet everybody. So Ross, I'll do the sharing, but I think Christos, you're going to lead the way to start off.
Yes, hi everyone. Yeah, as we head into lunchtime, I hope everyone's having a good Thursday so far. I'll say it's been really great listening to the thought leadership from Stuart, Julie, and Tracy just now, and yeah, hopefully we can follow suit with that. But with the ideas sort of top of mind, let's jump into some more IT asset management. But firstly, to introduce myself, my name is Christos, and I'm a business development manager here at Freshworks. But it's not just me today. I'm also joined by my colleagues Matt and Ross, who have some exciting topics to go through. So to give a high-level overview of our agenda, we'll be exploring strategies to elevate IT operations using ITAM, and hopefully by showcasing how organizations are integrating ITAM with the ITSM and ITOM, you'll be hopefully leaving the session with new ideas and how to unlock visibility, agility, and efficiency. So yeah, let's dive in and explore how ITAM can become the cornerstone of your company's digital transformation journey. So over to you, Ross.
Thanks, Christos. And I think what Christos probably just didn't quite touch on, there will be some demonstrations today, which will hopefully be of interest. But just to kick us off, so digital transformation still clearly a crucial imperative for growth and for innovation. And you see some stats on the screen there. 91% of businesses are engaged in some form of digital initiative. 87% of senior business leaders say digitization is a priority. 89% of all companies have adopted a digital-first business strategy or are planning to do so. And if I'm being honest, I think those numbers are incredibly low in comparison to what I would actually imagine. But it's not just a buzzword, right? It's essential for growth. Businesses are realizing that staying agile, embracing change anytime, anywhere is key. It's not just about keeping up with technology. It's about fostering a culture of continuous improvement. Next slide there, please, Matt. Sorry, you're probably going to hear that a few times today. So effective IT asset management is becoming or is crucial to modern operations. Yet, as has been mentioned, I think in the chat today, many organizations face persistent challenges that hinder productivity, efficiency, and strategic growth. And it's simply often not given the focus it deserves. Some of the key challenges we see are things like lack of visibility. So without a unified view of assets, IT teams are struggling to track hardware, to track software, to track cloud resources, and this leads to compliance risks and inefficiencies. And still there's inaccurate inventories. Poor asset tracking results in discrepancies, outdated records, sometimes even on spreadsheets. As I mentioned, compliance failures, and it really makes it difficult to optimize your IT investments and keep up with security policies. There's also a lack of scalability, where legacy ITAM processes are failing to keep up with business growth and evolving technology landscapes. And this is limiting automation and a lot of collaboration. Ultimately, there's an impact on employees, delayed resolution of issues and unsatisfied employees, where ineffective ITAM impacts IT service delivery. If you cannot see the asset, it delays issue resolution, leads to a frustrated employee, and more to the point, often operational disruptions. And then we've heard today about underutilized or unused resources. So organizations are often paying for underused software licenses, redundant cloud services, idle software, leading to wasteful spend and inefficient asset allocation. But by addressing these challenges, and it wouldn't be a webinar if I didn't mention AI driving this as well, automated ITAM solutions, businesses can enhance efficiency, reduce cost, and accelerate digital transformation. Next slide again, please, Matt. Our IT teams perhaps once were merely seen as a help desk for resolving tickets, actually they're a driving force behind this evolution. They're tasked with doing more with less, and they're trying to leverage technology to streamline processes, enhance employee experiences, foster innovation, and deliver value to the business. Ultimately, they're at the center of it all, steering vital changes to meet evolving needs in today's world. And IT leaders and their teams are tasked with managing global and hybrid teams too. This requires IT agents to work across multiple tools, multiple regions, multiple technologies, handle complex organizational data, ensure data security, mitigate risks, all of that while maintaining a strong focus on cost efficiency and innovation goals. So I'm passing over to Matt now, who's going to tell us a bit more about complexities that we're seeing and how organizations are trying to reimagine the service management process with ITAM.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ross. And yeah, one of those, I guess the primary reasons behind many of these challenges is organizations' tendency to view services and operations as these separate entities rather than an integrated function. And this kind of mindset, often rooted in the way things were, historical practices and organizational structures that have traditionally kind of kept these parts of the business separate. And this can create, like you say, those complexities, inefficiencies, and those fragmentations in the employee experience. Each of these approaches, works for us to solve a specific problem, but without that togetherness, it's not going to be an effective sort of set of working practices. So, we thought about ITIL, emphasizing the need for end-to-end service management rather than having these processes living in isolation. Adopting this kind of mindset of service ops can drive that coordinated service delivery and that value co-creation. And this shift is going to drive collaboration, efficiency, reduce complexity, and crucially align those services with business needs. So moving away from that fragmented approach and moving more towards being interconnected and collaborative are crucial to that success and that reimagining. So in today's kind of fast evolving landscape, organizations do need to strike that balance between service management and operations management to drive efficiency, specifically considering zero switching costs. So modern cloud native platforms rather than necessarily on premise to eliminate the friction of moving between these different practice areas, centralizing data. So you've got a single source of truth, as Ross touched on, that we'll see in the demo, across assets, services, and operations, and how those interplay to ensure better decision-making and compliance, as well as security. Better collaboration. So by breaking down those silos, and we'll talk about using a single tool between those different teams to accelerate that service delivery, optimize that resource allocation, and enhance cross-functional teamwork. Focus on the big stuff, the strategic, automate where possible, automate and optimize those routine functions to allow teams to shift from that kind of firefighting mode, those low value tasks, and toward value driven initiatives. With that freed up time, they're going to drive that transformation. And then, ultimately quick resolution of issues, understand what assets and services are affected through automated asset discovery, predictive analytics and workflows that are going to enable your IT teams to proactively resolve incidents and minimize those disruptions to service to your end users, potentially before they even start logging those tickets. So this is kind of quite a potentially kind of overwhelming slide, lots of information on here, but it does underpin the way that the CMDB and that good discipline of IT asset management, bringing everything into one place and having that up-to-date record, it aligns with that configuration management practice, but crucially, underpins a lot of these services that we provide as the organization. At its core, we're integrating a diverse range of asset types, as Ross mentioned, software, hardware, cloud, SaaS, etc., to drive that single source of truth, but then wrapped around that, tools like service health monitoring, dependency mapping, and that visibility into those operational relationships are what's going to enable that proactive problem solving. I know Tracy, spoke a lot about the shift from reactive to proactive, and driving faster resolutions, smoother service fulfillment, and so on. So bringing that real-time visibility to the table, is going to drive effectiveness across the organization. And Ross is going to talk through the first three of those strategies, and then we'll do a short demo of how some of that looks in the Fresh Service tool. and then we'll continue. So yeah, back over to you, Ross.
Thanks, Matt. You can go to the next slide. Okay, cool. So strategy number 1 of 5, there'll be a demo in between these 5. So a centralized, automated CMDB is no longer optional, right? It's essential for modern IT environments. And by deploying advanced asset management solutions, organizations can seamlessly manage a wide range of assets from legacy systems all the way to modern cloud technologies. The CMDB acting as a single source of truth, consolidating asset data across data centers, networks, storage, SaaS, applications, and far more. And this centralization eliminates silos, reduces redundancies, and ensures that IT teams have the accurate real-time data they need to drive informed decisions. However, to keep up with the dynamic nature of today's IT landscape, continuous and automated asset discovery becomes critical. Ensuring your CMDB stays up to date, enabling IT teams to proactively manage resources, maintain compliance, aligning IT operations with business goals. And this is where a modern CMDB changes the game. By providing up-to-date actual insights, organizations can enhance visibility, optimize costs, and empower IT teams to deliver faster, more reliable service operations. Ultimately, by leveraging a modern CMDB, IT teams can move beyond firefighting and focus on what matters most: strategic business outcomes and driving digital transformation. Yep. To the next slide for you, Matt.
Yeah, apologies, Ross. I've given you my slide to talk about. I realised I've transitioned too early. I think the key point on this slide is you can see the graphic on the right hand side, which articulates through device 42 how Freshworks and Freshservice can automatically populate and map the CMDB with not just physical devices but virtual devices as well, and so on, alleviating that burden of doing that tracking, right, of doing that manual population and so on. So you can see that kind of list of things that we can automatically discover and populate, which is what's going to underpin that CMDB that we're talking about. And I think this is my slide as well, Ross, so I'll keep hold of it for now. So absolutely, and we talk about Freshworks and device 42 and the way they work together, and some of the key use cases where we see that visibility of that asset estate, like we say, driving that value for the organization, not just in terms of the visibility, right? What's the so what that kind of wraps around having that well-defined and updated CMDB, and that frees up the capacity, but it gives us the intelligence to deliver a range of outcomes for the business. So the first of those around data center and cloud infrastructure management, managing physical assets, discovery of cloud, and something you talk about, the disposal and so on, public sector, really key, carbon emission and sustainability management as well. So driving the effectiveness of those health checks, because we've got a clear view of what's going on, and we can wrap some intelligence around that as well. The second piece around that governance, the asset management in terms of audits, making those processes more smooth, and the savings again that wrap around the consolidation of those underused tools or underused licenses and so on that we may have, cloud provisioning and so on. The third, which we're going to see a lot of on today's demo, really around the IT operations piece. So how do we understand the risk of change? How do we understand the impact of major incidents? How can we be proactive as well about identifying risks and so on? And how is that going to drive, reductions in service degradation, drive, better experiences for our end users, and minimize any risk? And then the fourth and final piece, which we won't touch on so much today, but as well as key capability, is around that migration and modernization. If we understand what infrastructure is within our environment, we can be more effective when it comes to the migration from on-prem to the cloud. If we're acquiring businesses, M&A, we've got two different sets of infrastructure and so on, then we can do those refreshes far more effectively. So lots of different use cases. Today, we're primarily going to be focused, as I say, on that top right corner. Oh, have I skipped one? No. So over to you, Ross, to tell the story quickly.
Yeah. So an organization that we've worked with around this is Aramex, and we've been able to help them transform their IT operations by creating a single repository for tracking all assets. And with this extensive and unified record of asset information, their IT teams have gained the visibility needed to make data-driven decisions. It's simplified things like important budgeting decisions across multiple teams, enable them to evaluate spend on both IT and non-IT assets more effectively. And ultimately, the result is smarter resource allocation, optimized costs, a stronger alignment of IT investments with business goals. And by doing this, businesses can ensure that IT is not just a support function, but a strategic enabler for growth. So I hand you back to Matt for our second strategy around implementing automated asset life cycles to boost agent productivity.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ross. Sorry, I had to jump under the table to plug my laptop in. So you might have seen me scrambling. So yeah, perfect. Sounds like we're back on track though. So absolutely. The second piece we're going to talk about, and again, we'll show some of this on the demo, is around, if we've got a well-populated and well-understood view of our asset infrastructure, we've got the ability as well within Freshservice to automate aspects of that life cycle that are going to drive efficiency and again, optimize away from those kind of potentially sort of low value and firefighting tasks and allow the team to move and focus more on more strategic activity. So that first piece in terms of the automation simply being the discovery. So rather than having to catalog everything manually, we can understand that inventory across the board automatically, as we previously mentioned. The monitoring piece, alert monitoring and auditing, understanding what's going on, what their contracts might be, end dates, warranties, and so on, and any kind of refreshes that might be needed, and also driving that resolution of issues where required. And then automating the asset life cycle through the different deployment and retirement phases, again, reducing manual interventions, making sure things are monitored effectively and disposed of efficiently, and also that we haven't got out of date or inappropriate kit out in the wild. So really having that governance through automations is going to help with all of those things.
And of course, many organizations have manual processes, and these hinder IT teams from scaling their operations effectively. One such customer was Eastern Washington University, and they found that by extensively leveraging rules and workflow automation off the back of a good CMDB, they were able to streamline their IT operations and drastically reduce response times, improving agility. So the automation capabilities they were able to use within Freshservice was just something they weren't able to build in their previous solution, which was ServiceNow. And this also enabled their IT team to respond and implement changes with much more ease because they could assess the impact of change, something that was previously cumbersome and slow for them to do. So with this, they're eliminating repetitive tasks and focusing on delivering strategic value. And now it's become a transformative tool rather than a ticketing system that's boosting agent productivity and driving operational excellence. So back over to you, Matt, for our third point around how we can help proactively manage assets to prevent critical downtime. And as I kind of mentioned there with Washington University, plan changes.
Perfect. Thanks, Ross. So absolutely, when it comes to that proactive management, that comprehensive view, not just of the asset infrastructure themselves, but the dependencies between them, is absolutely going to be critical to understanding the upstream, downstream potential impact and risk of change. So that critical downtime can disrupt operations, frustrate your employees, and lead to lost productivity. And this is why that proactive management is key, combined with that intelligent change planning. With Freshservice, IT teams gain a comprehensive view of service relationships, allowing them to identify potential points of failure before they impact operations. This visibility ensures smarter resource allocation and strengthens service reliability. Change management can also be optimized with automated tools that assess the impact of potential changes, helping teams make informed decisions before issues arise. Often, IT teams are reliant on outdated asset records or siloed systems, which make it difficult to assess the true impact of an outage or planned change. Freshservice changes this by delivering predictive insights from a centralized CMDB, enabling IT teams to map dependencies, model change impact, and proactively mitigate risks before they escalate. Additionally, automated incident correlation and root cause analysis can help teams not only to detect problems faster, but also to pinpoint the source with greater accuracy instead of manually troubleshooting or waiting for incidents to pile up. Ultimately, Freshservice doesn't just help IT teams to react faster, also empowers them to see risks before they happen, plan smarter, and operate with full control over the IT environment. And from there, we're going to jump across to the demo to talk about 3 of these key areas that we've discussed in Freshservice. So a slide across to the left, Ross just confirmed you see now the CMDB in Freshservice. Perfect. So we're going to talk through a couple of assets in the CMDB in Freshservice, then we'll follow them through some of that journey and the outcomes that we can deliver with the system. So the first thing you'll notice when I've got my CMDB, I've got the option to understand, the source, right, of this data that's been populated in the CMDB, and crucially, that's delivered automatically through a range of sources, be that the Freshservice Discovery Agent, Device 42, Cloud Discovery, and so on. And what that means is we've got that up-to-date view, that visibility, without needing to populate this manually. We'll take first a look at an endpoint end-user device, laptop, that's been populated with the Freshservice Discovery Agent, which has been installed on the device, but this could come through Intune or a variety of other sources. But what we'll see is not only do we have the asset that's been populated with a range of information that we can use to drive that asset lifecycle. I know someone mentioned barcodes as well, automatically created, but we've also discovered the software that might be installed on that device. We've got the components that have been picked up. So we've got a wide range of information which is automatically populated in that CMDB. From there, we can then drive outcomes off the back of this with that visibility. Equally, when it comes to contracts, costs, and so on, all of this again can be mapped through the system, so we can understand that full, audit trail around the asset that's in the system. Pardon me. We can also track the assignment history as well, and everything that's all the data we need around the asset. Secondly, we're going to take a look at an asset which has actually been discovered by Device 42. And D42. There we go. Ooh. 1 second. Just got to type it in to find it quickly. And what we'll see here is that we've also been able to discover virtual devices such as VMware and so on. One of the kind of the critical value drivers around Device 42 is that it doesn't necessarily just discover the device, but it can also discover the relationship mapping between that device, assets, and services as well that are underpinned. So we've got a well built out relationship map of the service and the assets that surround it and how those things are all connected, which is going to be really valuable further through the demo when we talk more about the risks and the impact of change and incidents and so on. So all of those associations and so on are discovered. The next piece, the second strategy that Ross spoke about, was that workflows and managing the asset lifecycle. So now that those assets have been populated in the CMDB, again, Freshservice allows us to drive outcomes through the workflow automator, which are going to make the the experience of our teams and the experience of our agents far more effective. What you'll see here in the workflow automator is that these workflows run across a variety of different modules in the platform. So from the start of the asset lifecycle, when we're thinking about requests and approvals, I can design multi-stage, multi-level workflows around the approvals based on conditions, based on that request, and so on. We'll see this a little bit later in action from a requester point of view. Equally, I can also run those workflows on assets. So again, deliver that full asset life cycle around retirement, around understanding when they may come for expiry and so on, the recovery process, the provision process at the start, and so on. And not just on an event basis, but also on a scheduled basis. So reminders before, for example, something retires can drive that governance around not having out-of-date assets out in the wild, and so on. The third piece, and as well we mentioned, starting and managing virtual machines based on information we've got stored in the platform. To Ross's point around, overuse of resources that may not be necessary. Third piece I'll mention is that alert monitoring as well. We'll talk later about that proactive resolution through alert monitoring, we can actually ingest those into Freshservice as well and map those against services, so that if there is a degradation to that service, rather than having to wait for our employees to raise that and flag to us, we can automatically ingest that and drive some major incident processes off the back of that. So we've mapped these assets into the platform. We've mapped the services around them. And, again, what's the so what, right? We actually want to use that data. We want to use that information to drive business outcomes. And first one we're going to talk about is in the risks and associated decision-making for change management and good change governance. So again, as Ross mentioned, if we're delivering changes that do affect those services and assets, Freshservice automatically can map that, and we can do that, manage that change process in a way that's far more robust, because we've got visibility over the services that may be impacted and the end users that are going to be involved. So here, Device42 has mapped that service into Freshservice, and we can click in and understand the relationships that service may have with other tools. So I can have a view of the potential upstream and downstream impact of that change, and therefore what is the associated risk, and anybody that needs to be informed, and any processes that need to be put in place. I can track any previous alerts that have come in, any incidents associated with the service or previous change, again, all from one pane. And again, what that means, I can make an informed assessment of the risk, and any stakeholders need to be kept in play. In terms of the alert configuration, you can see here, we've got different monitoring tools that can populate those alerts against those services, again, so we can be proactively updated. And I've got that audit trail of what's gone on in the past. So because it's all mapped together, I've got a really informed view of the risk of change and who might need to go ahead and, for example, manage that approval process. So again, thanks to that mapping, we understand who is the owner and who is going to actually potentially be affected. We can drive them through that change management process to give the organization an informed view of what's going on. So yeah, last piece we're going to talk about really quickly is that kind of that major incident piece as well. So we mentioned, those alerts that may come in, those workflows that may drive those major incidents, again, proactively, rather than waiting for employees to come and let us know that something has gone down. Again, those services being mapped, the assets that are affected as well being linked to the ticket. It means that when we do our reporting, which we'll talk about later, we can understand potentially, are there services, assets, and so on that are driving, majority of incidents or more than we would expect? And is there a problem that we need to take a look at in more depth? So we're going to take a look at those in the second demo. But for now, we're going to talk about those final two strategies and how we can drive that improved service offering for our employees.
Thanks, Matt. And I'll just briefly talk about Probe CX, but I'm seeing some questions coming, and I think it might be a good moment just to take a few of them now, and we will leave some of them till the end where it's probably a little bit more appropriate. But Probe CX, right? So we've heard about how unplanned downtime or poorly managed changes can bring IT operations to a halt. And with Freshservice, what Probe CX has done is revolutionize their approach to asset tracking and change planning. They're tracking every single asset, desktops, laptops, servers, switches, and more. And these are automatically discovered, and the relationships are automatically populated. They've built a centralized hierarchical system that includes things like network mapping for all of their floors. And this means they've got unparalleled visibility into their IT environment. As an example, if a local switch goes down, they know instantly which desktops are impacting, and this enables them to give it a faster response and resolution. Equally on change management, if the networking team is planning to update a server, the change manager and other departments are immediately alerted to the potential impact on connected devices. And this means they can be proactive with their communication, seamless in their coordination, reduce risk, and enhance reliability across their IT operations. But as I say, Matt, just quickly, some of the questions coming in, I think it's probably worth just touching on a couple of them now. Yasin, Peter, we'll leave yours to the end if you don't mind, but someone has asked Matt, what is Device42, right? So I think it's probably worth us touching upon now. And I'll take the first part of the question in terms of Device 42 is an advanced asset management solution that we purchased around about 7 or 8 months ago. We've had a partnership with them for a couple of years, and we're more seamlessly integrating Device 42 into the Freshservice ecosystem. But Matt, do you want to kind of take it more from a technical point of view?
Sure. No, I think you've described it accurately in terms of exactly it's that an organization that Freshworks have acquired. So now part of the Freshworks umbrella, and it's powering that advanced ITAM capability in our ecosystem. So the discovery and population of that asset database or CMDB with all of those asset types that we showed way back on that earlier slide. What it's allowed Freshworks to deliver is a much more robust and complete comprehensive view of the assets within the organization. And to touch on someone else's question as well, the relationships between those. So that advanced dependency mapping being one of the key value drivers from that product. So in terms of the discovery, it's a step up from the Freshservice kind of capabilities that we had natively in house, but now it's all being bundled. And to the point you made, Ross, as well about the connectivity, it now effectively kind of operates seamlessly as one platform. So yeah, that's the story, I guess, of Freshworks and D42. Oh yeah, so you hear me referring to D42 or Device 42. It's specifically that part of the ecosystem that's doing that discovery and dependency mapping.
Thanks, Matt. There's one other that I think we'll just touch on quickly. Is Device 42 running agent or agentless for discovery? And I think the answer is both, but you can confirm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Excellent. Bro, we'll crack on.
I've realized I've gone back in the slide.
You have, yeah.
Let's 1 second. Let me go back to where we need to be. There we go. Perfect. So let's talk about. Let's move to the next slide. So yeah, we're going to talk about the final two kind of areas where we're going to be able to kind of to drive that transformation. And the first is in the asset request process. So yeah, that unified experience that wraps around the CMDB is going to drive value for end users. Managing of these requests can often feel chaotic. Employees might face delays. IT teams are overwhelmed by repetitive queries and so on. Without that standardized process, as you scale, requests can get lost. Approvals may take longer than they should, and teams can spend unnecessary time handling the same routine issues, chasing up requests, and so on. Again, Freshservice transforms this experience by providing a seamless, AI-powered approach that standardizes requests and removes inefficiencies. At the core is a unified self-service portal that allows employees to access all service requests effortlessly, whether it's new hardware, software, or troubleshooting. People often face delays due to those fragmented processes and disconnected tools. Freshservice solves this by integrating Gen AI into your more typical service delivery channels like Teams or Slack, where people live and breathe. So they don't have to necessarily go to that portal. We can meet them where they are and provide adaptive, multilingual responses where they already work. And with this 24/7 AI-powered support, routine queries can be resolved instantly. We won't talk too much today about the incident management side, but it can free up the IT teams to focus on high-value tasks and those strategic pieces. And it's not just about productivity, it's about redefining how those teams deliver service, removing the chaos, driving efficiency, and ensuring people get what they need in a frictionless experience.
Yeah, so talk briefly about Altera Mountain that faced similar challenges to what Matt has explained there. And ultimately, they found our solution to be both intuitive and empowering. For end users, raising tickets has become a breeze, thanks to our user-friendly design. Simplified interfaces allowing users to log the requests effortlessly. And this is reducing bottlenecks and improving response times. And on the IT side, the support agents can seamlessly transfer tickets between departments, ensuring faster and more effective resolutions. One of the standout benefits that Altera's talked about is how easy Freshservice is to configure. So unlike some more traditional platforms that require developers to implement changes, their team can manage configurations independently. And this has really allowed them to adapt quickly to the evolving needs of the business. So pass you back to Matt for our final topic around maximizing asset visibility across IT environments.
Brilliant, thanks, Ross. Yeah, and I'd say in many organizations that this lack of visibility, it leads to inefficiencies, delayed resolution, and wasted resources. Teams may struggle with which to track which assets are associated with incidents, changes, and so on. Longer dime times, frustration, bottlenecks, increased risk, and an impact to service reliability. So with Freshservice, again, organizations can streamline that resolution, linking incidents, problems, and changes directly to relevant assets stored in the CMDB, improving operational efficiency and enable IT teams to address issues faster and with better context. But that visibility goes just beyond tracking, also drives strategic planning. By monitoring asset value, key metrics, and so on, IT leaders can make informed decisions about resource allocation, identify underperforming investments, and optimize their IT budgets for maximum impact. That integrated CMDB and ITSM solution ensures that robust governance, provides a unified source of truth for managing incident, problem, and change, reduces the silos, and fosters better collaboration for IT teams. We're going to hopefully drive asset management from just that tactical function to a strategic advantage to enable organizations to deliver faster resolutions, optimize spending, and support broader business goals. Over to you, Ross, I think, for our final case study.
Yes, our final one. So it's AG Bar, a leading manufacturer, overcame some of the challenges that Matt's talked about there, utilizing our Freshservice asset management capabilities. This meant they gained a comprehensive view of their hardware assets, including desktops, PCs. Quite a simple use case in this scenario, but the centralized visibility allowed them to track asset performance over time. They could identify patterns and make data-driven decisions, so easily assign issues to the right asset categories, enable IT teams to manage incidents and assets seamlessly, all within a single platform. And this streamlined approach not only simplified their operations, but improved things like incident resolution times. This meant that IT teams could focus on delivering more value rather than troubleshooting inefficiencies. So I'll hand it back over to Matt for a final bit of demonstration, and then we'll finish off and start answering many of the questions that are coming in.
Brilliant, thanks, Ross. And just need to, maybe I'll close down or rejig some of the stuff that I've had open. And we'll start, like I mentioned, with the first point around that intelligent service delivery and the integrated CMDB around that. So many of you will be familiar with the idea of the service portal, that one-stop shop where employees can request services, raise incidents, and so on, and get that support from the organization that they need. Out of the box, very straightforward for Freshservice to deliver this functionality that allows us to drive that asset life cycle and drive that unified experience. But again, what we're seeing is organizations are starting to be a lot more intelligent about how they deliver that, and like we say, meet their employees where they may live and breathe. So that might be in Slack, where we can deliver those requests through the Freshservice virtual agents, which is going to pick up these requests, and you'll see automatically will reply when I ask the service bot for a new laptop. It's just loading up. You can see it's intelligent enough that it can conversationally reply and understand maybe which type of device that I might be asking for. All of this, configurable and learning automatically from that service catalog we've built out on that portal. They're now bringing it through the power of generative AI to Slack, where the team might be working. Again, you see it's conversational, manages those expectations, and I can interact conversationally in Slack to place that request. It's gone ahead and submitted the request. If it needed further information, it would go ahead and obviously request that for me as well. And equally, you can see here, we can drive off the back of that, those approval processes that we showed in that workflow. So not to forget those who live and breathe in teams as well. the same thing is delivered through our virtual agent in Microsoft Teams. I can go ahead and manage those approval processes directly from where I work. Again, streamlining that end-to-end experience, so I don't have to, things that get lost in emails or wherever they might be. It's a quick button to click, and that process is moved through, and the employees are getting what they need. So let's pick that request up in the Freshservice platform. There we go. We can see those updates that have been made because that approval has been delivered, and I've got all the information I need in the request to go ahead and fulfill that. We can see that the approvals have been made, requested, and delivered. And now, with the service request, I can go ahead and fulfill the employee's request. Because we've got our CMDB up to date, I can see what we've got in stock when it relates to that request and move it through that life cycle from in stock through in transit to in use. And again, as the asset moves its way through the life cycle, it can move through the various different stages that we have set up. As I go ahead and assign the device, I might actually want to understand a bit more about its history. Can you guys hear me okay? I'm looking a bit blurry here.
Yeah, fine, Matt. Okay,
cool. No worries. I might want to, again, click in, understand the history a little bit more. If we're delivering, devices that are in stock, I might want to understand, what's the assignment history, who's had that device before, what activity is there against that? Are there, a raft of incidents and tickets that have been raised and issues that we need to know about in the past? Where is it in terms of its life cycle? If it's, close to its end of life, we might want to consider reinvesting and so on. But again, everything all connected together through the life cycle. And it's not just at an asset level that we're going to talk about that visibility, that final piece really around understanding our inventory, our estate, and what's the outcome of that comes from the reporting and analytics side. So again, in Freshservice, because we've got the CMDB populated, we've got the data points that we need to drive that business intelligence and decision making. And that starts with reporting, understanding that, across the estate where our money is being spent and so on. We talked about those, assets that may be problematic, driving a heavy number of incidents or changes, retirements, whether they're in use and so on. And that's all delivered through the Freshservice reporting. I can click in and understand to these assets and services, what is driving this high number of incidents? And, is there something that's underneath that we need to actually be more effective with? My usage right here, very low, or, I can understand a bit more detail, what's going on and where we could optimize. And it's not just on the kind of hardware front. Just realized I've got so many tabs open. I think my computer's struggling. Let me close a moment. So that final piece of that puzzle, what came to understanding our usage, is not just around hardware assets, but also our SaaS spend and the option in through Freshservice to connect in through your IDP to those SaaS products that your team might be using, and indeed understand the usage activity, how many people are logging into those tools, what are being used, how effective you're being when it comes to your contract in terms of the number of licenses needed and so on, contract values and expiry times, so we can plan ahead and effectively right size that estate in terms of licenses and the users. So we've got the good governance around who's using these tools and how appropriately we're managing the relationships with the vendor. So I think we're gonna pause there. Do we have a slide to wrap up? Yes, we do.
One more slide, Matt, and then we'll get into the many questions that have been answered. Hopefully, Christos has marked off the ones that we have answered so far. But yeah, as you've seen throughout our demonstrations today, utilizing Freshservice along with our advanced asset management capabilities, which is powered by Device 42, you can take a hybrid IT environment into a seamless, efficient process. So recapping 3 key things. that you can achieve. So reducing MTTR and streamlining your operations. So with real-time asset discovery and mapping, you can identify and resolve issues faster. The days of hunting for root causes are over, or searching for too long anyway. This means you can enable rapid resolutions, keep your operations running smoothly. And by minimizing IT costs, that the visibility that's provided, that Matt's shown you there, ensures optimized allocation of both software and hardware assets, meaning you can eliminate unnecessary spend, achieve a better return on your investments, and on your whole on your whole IT investments. And finally, mitigating risk and ensuring compliance, right? With the ability to monitor compliance in real time, you can stay ahead of regulatory requirements and reduce the risk of non-compliance. Yeah, so that's kind of at time for today from what we've got planned. But Christos, do you want to kind of walk us through some of the questions we've had come in? And myself and Matt will do our best to answer them.
Sure, no problem. I think a bit earlier, found half an hour ago, so hopefully they're still here to listen in. But there was an earlier observation about outcome-based licensing, and he was quite interested to find out how this would look like in Device 42 if it was implemented in an organization. So with the Matt or Ross there.
Yeah, I can take that one, and I guess I'll answer that and Device 42 cost questions, because I think there has been some in the chat as well, and both. Yeah, and in terms of outcome-based licensing, I think this has half been there for a while. Think about a chat bot that you might put onto your self-service portal, for example. You'd be buying bot sessions for that. And ultimately, every time a bot session is utilized, there is some form of outcome, whether it is meaning that the agent isn't having to do the basic troubleshooting first, or whether it solves the issue. You're getting an outcome from that. I think where the market seems to be going with this is typically you've bought those bot sessions up front, and we've had a data-backed conversation about how many bot sessions are likely to happen within a specified period of time. Whereas with agentic AI, it's more going to, well, if it solves the problem, then you'll pay for that. But if it doesn't and it has to go to an agent, then you don't pay for because you didn't get the outcome essentially. But I don't really see the model changing when we kind of just try to size up the amount of outcomes you're likely to get in a year. I don't actually see that changing because it breaks the whole model. And in terms of deploying Device 42 into an organization with that kind of outcome-based licensing, and if we talk about costs in general, so it's broadly in two brackets, right? You pay per device, and we think about devices in two forms, like end user device, much lower cost for that, versus, for example, discovering a server. So we have two kind of tiers of different devices. And in terms of costing that up, yeah, we've got to determine how many assets are we going to be discovering with advanced asset management. Two ways we can go about that. You may know that already. Highly unlikely you're going to get it right. But we can run a short proof of concept. And that proof of concept can help us identify the number of assets in your environment, and then we can right size the model from a pricing perspective. So hopefully that answers both of those questions, and maybe a couple of others that have been in the chat. But if it doesn't, by all means, drop an additional message in. Matt, anything to add from you on that?
No, I think that's a fair summary. I think the other question that's cropped up a few times is around, Device 42 and its connectivity with other tools, right? So it's not used exclusively in tandem with Fresh Service. It does connect with the likes of ServiceNow and other platforms as well. So that's not a restriction that's in place. I guess the work that we've been doing since the acquisition means that the connectivity between Fresh Service and Device 42 is heavily optimized, and that's the direction of a lot of investment and travel and so on. So while that integration is probably the priority, we do certainly connect into those other tools as well, absolutely. So don't let that restrict you from having a conversation with us about Device 42, absolutely.
Excellent. Oh, thank
Christos,
you.
any more questions, Christos? I think there might be a couple more.
Yeah, I'm just browsing through. I think One was around implementation. So if there are, say, 10,000 devices and with around 3,000 users in the organization, what does that kind of implementation time look like? Is there any rough kind of range for that? Or yeah, something to
Yeah.
share to Matt and Ross.
Yeah, so again, very similar to something I mentioned before. Typically, we would run a short proof of concept with an organization. They tend to run for about 2 weeks, and then there's probably an additional 2 weeks to refine that proof of concept once the solution is fully purchased. So typically anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the complexity of your environment, is a deployment time frame for device 42. And most organizations do that with a little bit of support from us, but primarily go at it themselves. So very little cost involved in that. In terms of the amount of devices and costs, we'd need to prepare a personalized quote, essentially.
I think another one that just came in now. What does reporting look like in device 42 / Freshworks for asset management? What's the kind of setup? What does that look like for maybe end users, leaders? Yeah.
Good question. Yeah,
But
Chris.
where for Matt?
Yeah, I think it's more for me. I think yeah, maybe one to pick up. I think if people have got a level of interest in these, then we would maybe set up a call to discuss it in more detail. I've not got the device 42 side of the reporting set up to show today, so it's definitely something we would discuss. Yes, we'll bring maybe to set up a call with the Freshworks team, and we can get into more detail.
I think there might be a couple
That's
more
great.
in
It's
there as well.
probably a good point to bring this piece to a close. Thank you very much for that, guys.